Once again, good evening, everyone. You're listening to Red Pill 78. I am Zak the Corruption Detector, and this is another edition of Red Pill News. I hope everyone is having a lovely day. We've got many stories to go through today, so let's get right into it. It turns out that yesterday, during Ghislaine Maxwell's bail hearing, we also learned that she has a secret husband, and she refuses to reveal the identity of that person. President Trump has put Democrat-run cities on notice. There may be something coming in the very near future. He might have to help retake them from the people who are destroying them. And along that line, the movement to defund the police has backfired, as prominent members of the African-American community are now calling on the NYPD to bring back the anti-crime unit and stop the wave of shootings. Hundreds of percent increases in the last weeks. And it looks like the co-founder of the Never Trump Lincoln Project, who was also the architect of the failed presidential runs of No Name, happens to be a foreign agent from Russia. You cannot make this stuff up. And in some troubling news, the head of MUFON has been arrested on solicitation of children charges. We also have some troubling news coming out of Iran. A former defense ministry staffer has been executed as an apparent and alleged Clowns in America spy. News on Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She has been hospitalized with a possible infection, and just like that, poof, he's gone. Kanye West has dropped out of the 2020 presidential race. We're going to go over all of this and more, so please, everyone, do sit back, relax, grab your popcorn, and we'll be right back after a brief word from our sponsor. Turmeric and other superfoods are on the rise as consumers are looking for ways to support their immune system. But did you know that the typical turmeric has extremely poor absorption in the body? That's why I recommend Ageless Body. Ageless Body uses a breakthrough turmeric extract called curcumin, and it's been shown to be 46 times more bioavailable than standard turmeric powder. The secret lies in Ageless Body's Ultrasol nutrient delivery system. Along with curcumin turmeric, Ageless Body also comes packed with 3 additional superfoods. First of all, they have sensoril ashwagandha, which is the most premium form of ashwagandha, and it's been used for centuries for its stress-reducing effects. It also has CoQ10, which keeps your body's cells energized and at full strength to supercharge your immunity, and Cetria glutathione, which helps boost your body's natural defenses against viruses and infection. Get yourself a bottle of Ageless Body. I highly recommend it. As an added bonus, if you order today, they are going to give you free shipping, free VIP live health and fitness coaching for life, and a free e-report on the best 10 ways to reduce your body age. You'll also be feeding a hungry child. For every order of Ageless Body today, the company will donate a nutritious meal to a hungry child in your honor. So please visit agewithredpill.com. That's agewithredpill.com. Save 51% off and get free shipping. And remember, when you support my sponsors, you support this channel. All right, guys, thanks for sticking around. Another bit of information we learned after the bail hearing for Ghislaine Maxwell yesterday. First bit is that she has a secret husband, and she is refusing to reveal the identity of this mystery man. Now, this detail was publicly divulged yesterday by New York prosecutors. They said, in addition to failing to describe in any way the absence of proposed co-signers of a bond, the defendant also makes no mention whatsoever about the financial circumstances or assets of her spouse, whose identity she declined to provide to pretrial services. Now, this was a quote from Assistant U.S. Attorney Allison Moe speaking to Manhattan Federal Judge Allison Nathan during the video conference. Moe added, there's no information about who will be co-signing this bond or their assets, and no details whatsoever. So I guess the second question is, who were the people who were willing to put up the money to get Ghislaine out of prison? I would imagine they have some fairly high-profile individuals. That's probably why they didn't want their names divulged. Now, after the hearing yesterday, she is going to remain behind bars until her trial that has been set for July of 2021. Also, yesterday, there were 2 Epstein accusers who were involved in the bail hearing, and they really wanted to make it known that if Ghislaine got out of prison, it probably would not be a good thing. They pleaded with Judge Allison Nathan to ask for Maxwell to stay behind bars, and I understand the pleas were were quite heartfelt and very, very emotional. Now, Nathan said that the most restrictive form of release would be insufficient to ensure Maxwell would not flee, particularly now that she is aware that a conviction could result in up to 35 years behind bars. I don't know how long it's been that Maxwell has had that information, but I would imagine as soon as she got locked up, the lawyers that she was working with probably let her know what the worst case scenario would be. Now, her lawyer, Mark S. Cohen, told Judge yesterday that because Maxwell was only clad in her pajamas, that is the reason why she ran to another room. It wasn't that she was trying to evade the FBI, she was feeling bashful. Well, I find that hard to believe, considering all of the charges against Maxwell and the first-hand witness accounts from the women and girls who were victims of Maxwell and Epstein. As this story continues to develop, I will continue to bring the latest breaking news. All right, now next we have a clip from President Trump speaking from the Oval Office. My good friend Methods here says, all the Democrat-run cities were just put on notice. This is good news for law and order here in America in 2020. Let's take a listen.
Thank you. You talked about taking over cities earlier this week. Is that what next week's announcement is about?
You'll be seeing next week. We'll have a conference next week and we'll tell you in great detail. But it's something that I think at this point the American people want to see. They've been run very poorly, these cities, whether it's Seattle, where we were getting ready to go in and they decided to go in, and that's good. Minneapolis, where we had the National Guard go in, and as soon as they did that, we straightened that mess out. They should have been able to do it locally with their police. Their police are good. They were told not to do anything. Or many other cases. We're doing a great job in Portland. Portland was very rough, and they called us in, and we did a good job, to put it mildly. Many people in jail right now. But we have other cities that are out of control. They're like war zones. And if the city isn't going to straighten it out, if local politicians, or in this case, I don't say this for political reasons, they're all Democrats. They're liberal, left-wing Democrats. And it's almost like they think this is going to be this way forever. Where in Chicago, 68 people were shot and 18 died last week. We're not going to put up with that. We're not going to put up with that. So that's for our next discussion. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Well, I think that Method's characterization is correct. Each and every one of these cities that is out of control at the moment is run by a liberal left-wing politician. You look at places like New York City, with incidents of shootings up hundreds of percent. I believe that a one-year-old child was recently gunned down in New York City after the 8-year-old girl in Atlanta, and who knows how many children have been lost in Chicago. Now let's move right along to the situation in New York where Bill de Blasio is firmly to blame. You know, it was barely a month ago that leftists began their campaign to defund and abolish the police. And now, after getting a taste of what life would be like without police, prominent members of the African American community in New York are calling on the NYPD to bring back the anti-crime unit. Remember, the anti-crime unit was the plainclothes unit that ran the streets looking for individuals with firearms and frisking them. That was a major concern among activists and leftists, the stop and frisk policy. Well, unfortunately for them, the stop and frisk policy actually was working, and ever since it stopped, we have seen shootings skyrocket inside the Big Apple. Now, after a string of violent crimes in which some cases have victimized babies, members of the African American community are calling for a reversal of course. This is simply not working. Two very prominent members of the black community in New York City want the NYPD to bring back the anti-crime unit, which Bill de Blasio recently just disbanded. Now, we had another tragic weekend of gun violence in New York City, which included the death of that one-year-old. And two members of the African American community are saying enough is enough. In Brooklyn, the borough president, Eric Adams, held up a pair of baby shoes on Monday after a 1-year-old child became the latest victim of the gun violence in the city. They were simply caught in the crossfire at a family barbecue just hours before. He said babies are not supposed to be wearing these in a coffin. Now, Adams is actually a former cop, so perhaps he has a different perspective than some of the other activists out there. But he became the second member of the African-American community to call on the NYPD to stop the violence by reinstituting the anti-crime unit. Those were the undercover cops whose job it was simply to get guns off the street. They were disbanded after the anti-cop protests that shook New York City. Bill de Blasio was firmly behind it. Adams said, "I think that a total elimination is something we need to reevaluate." You think? Right now, bad guys are saying if you don't see a blue and white, you can do whatever you want. The guns keep going off, and now we have a 1-year-old, and the blood is on the hands of the mayor and the state legislature. That's right, Bill de Blasio is 100% to blame, and the fact that the state legislature, that the governor, that anyone in power in New York would think that by completely disbanding a large police task force whose job it was to get guns off the street, that would somehow make things better. Well, it's either ignorant or stupid. Right now, Bill de Blasio has done nothing but destroy all of the gains against crimes that have been made in New York City since he came into office. His political grandstanding has done nothing except ingratiate himself and work towards re-electing himself as the mayor of New York City after his failed presidential bid not that long ago. Bill de Blasio must go in New York City. We need actual leadership. We need another man like Rudy Giuliani, someone who is actually going to be tough on crime. Being tough on crime does not mean being tough on the community. If you are a criminal, then you have something to worry about. But we need police in our major metropolitan areas. Why? Because without them, we have something that happens like this: the death of an innocent 1-year-old baby. It simply cannot happen. And as it stands right now, the governor and the leaders in New York City have absolutely no plans on how to do it. Reinstating the anti-crime unit is a good start. All right, next, in a shocking story I can't make up, a co-founder of the Never Trump Lincoln Project has been revealed as a foreign agent for whom? Russia. That's right, Russia. Now, this group of Never Trumpers formed the Lincoln Project with the mission of protecting democracy. But their real mission is not to protect the rule of law and democracy, but rather simply to defeat President Trump in the 2020 presidential election. Now, remember back in 2016, there was a group of self-acclaimed true conservatives. They joined together in an effort to see Donald Trump defeated in the 2016 election. That would have been Glenn Beck, who has since flipped, Bill Kristol, Eric Erickson, Andrew McCarthy, Dana Loesch, who has also flipped, Katie Pavlich, and others claimed they knew more about conservatism than candidate Trump. However, fortunately for America, their efforts to prevent candidate Trump from winning the 2016 election backfired spectacularly on election night, November 8th, 2016, and President Trump was ushered in to great fanfare. Now, this year, another gaggle of individuals who claim to know better than President Trump on what's best for America have formed a group by the name of the Lincoln Project. It's another effort to see President Trump defeated in this 2020 election. Now, the founders of the group are Crazy George Conway. That's right, Kellyanne Conway's husband, made famous by the mainstream media because he abuses his wife Kellyanne Conway in public. Also, Rick Wilson, the Confederate cooler guy, Steve Schmidt, John Weaver, and several other Trump haters. You can see a list of them right here. Abraham Lincoln, of course, was the former Republican president who, like President Trump, was attacked by Democrats and angry and crazy individuals because of the changes he wanted to make in America. Lincoln won the Civil War, though, and he united the country afterwards in his actions, and he freed the slaves in America forever. But there were those who thought they could do a better job than Lincoln by letting the Confederacy go. They were wrong. Now, President Trump is attacked like no other president in American history, with the exception of Lincoln. So, kind of ironic that they chose to call it the Lincoln Project. Makes you wonder what their ultimate goal is, considering what happened to Abraham Lincoln in that theater. Now, despite all of this, President Trump has a massive list of accomplishments. He has honestly done more for America than any other president, perhaps every president combined. There is no other president since Lincoln perhaps John F. Kennedy, who has done more to save this great country. Now, the really shocking information is that John Weaver, the co-founder and also the architect of the failed presidential campaign for No Name, the senator from Arizona, is actually a paid agent of Russia. Let's take a look at the evidence. All right, so here we have the Twitter account of John Weaver. He says he's a proud husband and dad to 2 awesome kids. He is a Joe Biden supporter. Let's move on to the next little bit. And here it is. This is a foreign agent registration statement. That's right, the FARA application, which they tried to come down hard on General Michael Flynn for not filling out properly or in a timely fashion in regards to his work for people from Turkey. But here we have the principal address of the foreign principal, and it is listed in Moscow, Russia. If you ever needed a smoking gun to tie someone to Russia, we have one right here, but you will never find anything like this having to do with President Trump. Every address he has is associated with the United States of America. Here is another one signed by John Douglas Weaver, the senior partner. This is page 2 on the FARA registration page. And it shows you conclusively that the Lincoln Project, the co-founder John Weaver himself, is a foreign agent for the country of Russia. You just can't make it up. What's even worse is that this also ties him back in some ways to Uranium One. Let's take a look at an article from Zero Hedge. All right, and here it is. What his actual registration was for was working as a consultant to JSC Texnabexport, Tenex, which owned the Putin-founded, government-owned company of Rosatom. That's right, Rosatom of Uranium One fame. Here is also a picture of him with No Name on the presidential trail back in 2000 and 2008. Both campaigns which were spectacular flops. Now, he also worked on John Kasich's 2016 failed campaign, and he's the founder and principal of the network companies. And he has acknowledged the work in a Foreign Agents Registration Act that was from May 10th of 2019. It's also notable to let you guys know that Joe Biden's energy advisor, Amos Hochstein, also advised Tenex, so he is also an agent for the Russian government. In fact, Hochstein assisted personally in Russia's attempts to corner the global uranium market, once again, tying him directly back to Uranium One. It's quite obvious why Uranium One never went anywhere under the former government, because everybody in Obama's government was connected to Uranium One. So now you have one of Joe Biden's top advisors tied to the Russian government. You have one of the top people behind the movement to remove President Trump in 2020 tied directly to the Russian government. John had made a statement before saying that all roads lead to Putin. And in fact, when it comes to John Weaver, every road does lead to Putin. And here it is. He said it on July 1st, and he was speaking about none other than former Attorney General Jeff Sessions. However, again, it is not anyone in the Trump campaign whose road leads to Putin, but everybody else who wants to get Trump out of office. Who is the preferred candidate of Vladimir Putin? Probably anyone but President Trump. Here is another selection from John Weaver's account showing reference after reference trying to tie President Trump to Putin. Well, someone ought to tell him that it's not President Trump, but John Weaver himself with massive ties to Vladimir Putin. All right, next, in another example of the great work President Trump is doing for us here in America, he just announced about an hour ago that in New York and Nevada, 21 MS-13 members and leaders have been indicted on charges including murder, kidnapping, and drug trafficking. Let's take a listen to the statement.
Many of the criminals we indicted and arrested in the past 7 days were illegal aliens. Yesterday, for the first time ever, the Eastern District of Virginia, thank you very much, indicted MS-13 leaders on charges of terrorism. So we have the MS-13 leader on charges of terrorism, and that's a first. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr.
We're using terrorism, which gives us extra strength. In New York and Nevada, 21 MS-13 members and leaders have been indicted on charges including murder, kidnapping, and drug trafficking. The DOJ has also announced that it will seek the death penalty for a bloodthirsty MS-13 leader responsible for the despicable killing of 7 Americans, including 2 teenage girls.
So just wanted to make sure you guys saw that. President Trump working hard across America to restore law and order. MS-13 has been a horrible thing for America, and as more leaders and members of the gang are rounded up, you can bet we will be getting safer and safer. And I love it that it's not just New York and Nevada. We have other states where MS-13 members are being rounded up. Now next, I'd like to say do Arizona so we can get rid of the Democrat mafia down there as well. Now next, this is an article from Vice, and I wouldn't normally cover anything from Vice, but there isn't much coverage about this out there in the mainstream media or any other right-wing media at this time. But the head of the major UFO organization known as MUFON has been arrested on child solicitation charges. He is the executive director of the MUFON UFO network, and his name is Jan Harzan. He has been the head of MUFON since 2013, and he is accused of soliciting for certain types of activity from a detective that he believed to be a 13-year-old girl. Absolutely disgusting. Now, Vice goes into certain allegations that have been made since 2015 regarding an Italian food gate, if you get my drift, and I think they kind of make fun of the idea that UFO research and this Italian food gate have been connected in the past, but only in the most tangential ways. Really, anybody who's out there looking for the truth on things that they've been lied to for their entire lives, the truth kind of tends to intersect. Now, court records show that he was arrested on charges of communicating with a minor with the intent to engage in a lewd act, as well as attempting to arrange a meeting to engage in that lewd act. Now, this was on July 3rd. They contacted him after he had solicited this activity from the detective he believed to be the young girl. This was in Huntington Beach Police Department. The suspect solicited the minor to meet for the purpose of engaging in this activity, and when they agreed to meet, detectives were there to take him into custody. He has been arrested on multiple felonies, and he's now sitting in the Huntington Beach jail. I don't know if MUFON has any type of statement that they've made on this. I know that the only person I've seen talking about this with any connection at all to the UFO community is Jordan Sather. So Jordan, kudos on sharing this story, and if there's any more developments, we will bring them to you here. Now, I wanted to bring you this story because very recently, President Trump has been reaching out directly to the Iranian people. They are under major fire from their own government. People who have been protesting this totalitarian regime have routinely been executed in recent weeks. And just very recently, Iran has executed a defense ministry staffer that they allege was a Clowns in America spy. Now, this was a former employee from the defense ministry who they say was convicted of spying on behalf of the Clowns in America. It was the second such execution in the past month. Now, this man's name was Reza Asghari. He was executed last week, and a spokesperson from the judiciary said that Asghari had worked in the airspace department of the ministry and retired back in 2016. And in the last years of his service, he joined the Clowns in America. He sold information about our missiles to the Clowns in America and took money from them. He was identified, tried, and sentenced to death. Now, occasionally, Iran announces arrests and convictions of alleged spies for foreign countries, including the U.S. and Israel. However, we have absolutely no way of ascertaining whether or not this information is true. In my experience, the Iranian regime has been extremely paranoid because they want to maintain their nuclear program at any cost. So if they find someone who they even remotely believe could be a danger to their regime, it's not uncommon that they brand them as a Clowns in America spy and just remove them. Now, back in June, there was another alleged spy, and that was Jalal Hajazavar. He was actually hung in a prison near Tehran. Now, that report said that he was also a former staffer of the defense ministry and had admitted in court that he was a paid spy for the Clowns in America. Again, the problem is that the Iranian regime will torture people to the point where they will absolutely choose to admit anything at all to get it to stop. Just recently, there were several protesters that I shared about on Twitter. The same thing happened to them. They were tortured to the point that they needed medical attention severely, and the only reason they offered the confessions was so that they could get the medical treatment. Of course, the regime never gave them the medical treatment, and instead they allowed them to suffer before they were executed. President Trump, I hope that something is going to be done about Iran. We must have freedom for the people of Iran. I'm not saying we need to go in there and start another war, but there must be things that can be done to help foster democracy in a way that will help these people. And in what seems to be a recurring theme, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg has been hospitalized with a possible infection. She was admitted on Tuesday to Johns Hopkins University Hospital. She is 87 years old, and she is receiving treatment after experiencing fever and chills. Of course, the left will do anything to extend the life of Justice Ginsburg. She is their last and greatest hope on SCOTUS. She received this treatment at Johns Hopkins Baltimore Hospital after experiencing the fever and the chills. She underwent a procedure to clean a bile duct stent and will stay in the hospital for a few days, a court spokeswoman said. The justice is resting comfortably and will stay in the hospital for a few days to receive intravenous antibiotic treatments and, no doubt, formaldehyde as well. Ginsburg is a 4-time cancer survivor. She apparently gets the best medical care available in the United States, and she's had 2 cancer scares in the last year. Now, she underwent 3 weeks of radiation treatment for a localized malignant tumor found on her pancreas in July 2019. In December of 2018, she also underwent surgery to remove cancer from her left lung. Now, if she steps down, there would be a huge shift on the highest court in the land. And this is not the only justice that President Trump has the opportunity to potentially replace. If he gets a second term, I am thinking he has the opportunity to replace at least 3, if not 4, Supreme Court justices. So this story is obviously very important to not only the left, but the right and the future of America. And finally, just like Kaiser Soze, poof, he's gone. Kanye West has dropped out of the presidential race, a report has said. Kanye West reportedly dropped out of the 2020 presidential race less than 2 weeks after he jumped in. Steve Kramer, who is a Get Out the Vote specialist, has claimed that the billionaire rapper is already out after hiring paid and volunteer staff to help him get on ballots in Florida and South Carolina. Now, of course, we remember on July 4th, Kanye West nuked the Democrats when he said he would be running for president. And then he gave that famous interview with Forbes where he said that his campaign slogan was yes, and that his vice presidential choice was Michelle Tidball, a preacher from Wyoming, that his platform was based on the Wakanda management model, and that his party was the birthday party. Why? Because if he got elected, it would be everybody's birthday. Well, he apparently figured out he had very, very slim chances of winning, and Kramer told the Intelligencer that West's hired staff were disappointed and that West has allegedly dropped out. He also claimed to have nothing good or bad to say about Kanye. That is a little strange. He said everyone has their personal decision about why they make decisions. That's a little obvious. Running for president has to be one of the hardest things for someone to actually contemplate on that level. The Intelligencer claimed that West needed 132,781 valid signatures from Florida voters in less than a week. And in his Forbes interview, West said he's no longer a backer of President Trump. He actually said a lot more than just that he wasn't backing President Trump. But of course, the leftist media wanted to push that narrative to everybody. He definitely did not have anything good to say about Joe Biden, but you wouldn't know that unless you read the article yourself. And the thing is that West is still a fan of the president. He said in that interview, Trump is the closest president we've had in years to allowing God to still be a part of the conversation. That is very, very true. There certainly are no candidates on the left who are interested in having God be part of the conversation at all. He blasted the Democrats in that interview, and especially Joe Biden's contention that African Americans should be expected to vote Democratic. It was clearly one of the most offensive things that Joe Biden has ever said in a long line of gaffes. That is a form of racism and white supremacy and the white control to say that all black people need to be Democrat and to assume that me running is me splitting the vote. All of that information is being charged up on social media platforms by who? Democrats. And Democrats used to tell me, the same Democrats have threatened me, the reason why this is the first day I registered to vote is because I was scared. I was told that if I voted for Trump, my music career would be over. He said he was threatened to being in one party. I was threatened as a celebrity into being in one party. I was threatened as a black man into the Democratic Party, and that's why the Democrats are doing emotionally to my people, threatening them to the point where this white man can tell a black man, if you don't vote for me, you're not black. The former vice president in May sat down with Charlemagne the God on his popular radio show, The Breakfast Club, and at one point he told the host, who is black, that if you have a problem figuring out if you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black. How absolutely disgusting and offensive that Joe Biden could say that, and how disgusting that the mainstream media would just gloss over it and not talk about it. If anybody else in the world had made a statement such as that, you would bet it would be front page news for months at a time, and the cancel culture outrage would be outpouring into the streets. It would be in physical form. Something in my mind is telling me that perhaps Kanye West did this as a stunt. He simply wanted to get the attention on him so that he could give an interview such as this, get a platform to tell the African American community here in America that just because of your race, it doesn't mean you have to vote Democrat. I tell everyone to vote with your heart. Vote on the policies. Vote for the person that you actually think will do the best job for America. A strong America means a strong American populace, and that is good for everyone who is a citizen of this country. Kanye West, I'm glad you rethought that, but I'm also glad you had the opportunity to make these statements and perhaps make people think. Well, gang, that's all I have for you today. Thank you to everybody who made it to the end of the video. As always, this has been Red Pill 78. I am Zak the Corruption Detector, and this was another edition of Red Pill News. Good luck, everyone, and God bless. Hey guys, one more thing. I just want to say thank you to everybody who has supported the channel. If you're interested in doing more, there is always links in the description below. I have the merch store. Of course, I also have the backup channels. Please subscribe to those. If you take a look up here, you're going to see a couple of other videos. There's also a spot to subscribe if you have not subscribed yet. And if you are subscribed, I ask you to please check and make sure that you're still subscribed and your notifications are turned on. Thank you everybody for watching the program, and I will see you tomorrow.